payday should feel like a win. But for a lot of people, the money lands in an account that's already spoken for before it even arrives. Rent or the mortgage takes its cut first, then the car payment, then insurance, a couple of subscriptions, a credit card minimum, maybe a buy now, pay later installment on something you bought 3 weeks ago and barely remember. None of it looks like a disaster. Every bill gets paid on time. But there's nothing left over, no cushion, no breathing room, nothing for the week when something actually goes wrong. That's the gap I want to talk about today. The gap between looking financially fine and actually being financially secure, because those are not the same thing, and more people are living in that gap than you'd think. The Federal Reserve does a big survey of American households every year, and the most recent numbers are honestly kind of wild. Around 3/4 of adults say they're doing okay or living comfortably. But when you ask a simpler question, could you cover a surprise $400 expense with cash or something close to it, only about 6 in 10 people say yes, and roughly 1 in 6 adults said they couldn't pay all their bills in full last month. So going broke in real life almost never looks like the movies. It's not a repo truck in the driveway or a foreclosure notice taped to the door. It's much quieter than that. It's a life that only works if the paycheck shows up exactly on time, every automatic payment clears without a hiccup, and nothing expensive breaks. That's it. That's the whole system, one bad week away from a problem. Let's start with why this is so easy to miss from the outside. Picture someone who looks completely fine. Rent's paid, car's clean, phone's the newest model. Vacation pics are up on Instagram. Nothing about their life screams financial trouble, but inside their budget, every single dollar already has a job. And that appearance of stability is being held up by a credit limit, a family member who'd help in a pinch, or the assumption that next month's paycheck lands exactly like this month's did. I want to be clear, this isn't about calling anyone reckless. There are really 3 different situations that can all look identical from the outside. Some people simply don't earn enough to cover the basics, full stop. Others earn a decent income but live somewhere expensive, or they're paying for childcare or managing a medical situation that eats their budget alive. And then there's a third group, people who genuinely could build savings, but every time they get a raise, that extra money quietly turns into a nicer apartment or a nicer car instead of a bigger cushion. 3 very different stories, same outward appearance, bills paid, nothing saved. And the Fed's numbers back this up. Only 55% of adults had enough saved to cover 3 months of expenses. Almost a third said that even if they sold assets or leaned on every resource available, they still couldn't survive 3 months without their main paycheck. And among adults under 30, nearly half had needed financial help from family or friends in just the past year. Here's the real dividing line, and I think it's more useful than how much do you have saved. It's not whether your bills are paid today, it's whether one bad month, reduced hours, a medical bill, a car repair, forces you to borrow against a month you haven't lived yet. So how did spending get this effortless?
Think about how buying something used to work. Cash left your hand, a card came out of a wallet. There was a small pause, a moment where your brain registered, I am now spending money. That pause is basically gone. Now it's a saved card, a tap of your phone, a subscription that renews itself in the background, or a checkout button that quietly splits your total into 4 easy payments. The purchase gets easier. The total cost of your life gets harder to actually see. None of these moments feel big enough to trigger a real conversation with yourself about money, but each one is a claim on income you haven't earned yet. And this isn't just a feeling. Plenty of buy now, pay later users have reported an overdraft or an insufficient funds fee triggered by one of these payments. Regulators who studied these loans found that a large share of borrowers were juggling multiple BNPL loans at the same time, often across different apps and providers. That's the real risk with fragmented debt like this. When your obligations are scattered across 5 different apps and 5 different due dates, you evaluate each one in isolation. It's just $23 a month. It's just $40. Nobody sits down and adds up every subscription, every installment, every auto renewal tied to their account. If you did that math right now for everything, would the numbers surprise you? Now let's talk about why so many purchases start to feel necessary in the first place. Open any social feed for 5 minutes. The ordinary parts of life basically disappear. Small apartments get replaced by marble kitchens. Reliable cars get replaced by luxury SUVs. Dinner becomes a whole event. Travel looks routine instead of rare. You see the polished result. You never see the sponsorship deal, the debt, the rental agreement, or the 10 takes it took to get that shot. The danger isn't any single photo, it's repetition. Once your brain sees nice often enough, nice starts to feel normal, and normal practical choices start to feel like falling behind, even when they're the smarter move. Researchers have actually studied this directly and found a real link between heavy social media use and status-driven spending, partly explained by people feeling less well-off relative to what they're constantly seeing, even when their actual financial situation hasn't changed at all. To be fair, that's not the whole story. Social media also spreads genuinely useful advice about budgeting and buying less. People respond differently based on their income, their financial habits, who's around them. Social comparison didn't invent status spending, but it did put it in your pocket and hand it to you every single time you pick up your phone. The real financial danger is when a moment of online comparison turns into a permanent offline expense. One purchase can scratch that itch once, but an upgraded apartment, a newer car payment, a premium subscription, these reset your entire baseline cost of living. And once that new baseline sets in, earning more money doesn't necessarily buy you security, it just buys room for the next upgrade. This is exactly how lifestyle creep works, and it rarely feels like a mistake in the moment. It usually follows something good, a raise, a promotion, a better job. Suddenly there's breathing room, and spending a little of it feels completely reasonable. A better apartment cuts your commute. A newer car feels safer. Delivery saves you time after a brutal workday. None of these choices are crazy on their own.
The problem is that temporary breathing room quietly turns into permanent obligation. The excitement of the new apartment fades, but the higher rent doesn't. The new car smell disappears, but the payment stays exactly the same. And because humans adapt fast to comfort, going back to how things used to be doesn't feel like a sensible reset. It feels like losing. Two expenses do more damage here than anything else: housing and transportation. Government spending data shows housing eats up roughly a third of the average household budget, and transportation takes another sizable chunk. Combined, these two categories alone can swallow more than half of what a typical household earns before food, healthcare, or anything discretionary even enters the picture. With housing specifically, people tend to fixate on the mortgage number because that's the figure the calculator shows them, but the real cost is much wider. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, HOA fees, all of it ongoing, all of it rising over time. A payment that looked totally manageable on paper can get tight fast once insurance renews at a higher rate, where the AC dies in July. Recent housing data shows the typical mortgage-related monthly cost for homeowners has climbed noticeably in just the last couple of years, driven largely by higher insurance and financing costs. Some homeowners have actually dropped coverage entirely because they simply can't afford the premium anymore, which just moves the risk somewhere else instead of solving it. Cars follow the same trap, just with a twist. A car starts losing value the moment you drive it off the lot. Dealers sell you a monthly number, not a total cost. Stretch the loan long enough, and almost any car becomes affordable on a monthly basis, even though the total you're paying keeps climbing. Meanwhile, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and repairs sit quietly outside that monthly number. National credit data shows auto loan balances sitting at record highs, with billions in new auto debt added just in recent months, and unexpected vehicle repairs are consistently the single most common surprise expense households report facing in a given year. Once housing and transportation eat most of the budget, Everyday life starts leaning on credit, and that's when debt quietly stops being a tool and starts being the emergency fund a household never got to build. It rarely happens as one dramatic decision. Rent takes its share, groceries and utilities go out the door, and then a medical bill or a repair shows up. If there's no savings to absorb it, a credit card buys you one more day of normal. The emergency feels handled, but the cost comes back next month, now with interest attached. This is how financial stress becomes self-reinforcing. Under pressure, people focus on making this month work, which makes borrowing feel like the rational choice in the moment. But that borrowing eats into next month's flexibility too, and a little more future income gets claimed before it even arrives. The overall numbers are enormous. American household debt is now measured in the trillions, spread across mortgages, auto loans, student loans, and credit cards. Most of that is mortgage debt backed by actual homes, so it's not automatically a crisis. But delinquency rates have been ticking upward, and delinquency tends to be a late warning sign. Flexibility usually disappears long before someone actually misses a payment. So here's the real distinction I want you to walk away with, because it's more useful than any specific number. There's an expensive life, which is fine, as long as income, savings, and assets can actually support it. There's a fragile life, which works fine right up until something unexpected happens. And there's insolvency, where what you have coming in can no longer cover what you already owe. Most people aren't sliding straight into insolvency. They're sliding from expensive but fine into fragile, and they usually don't notice because every bill is still getting paid. A few honest questions can tell you where you actually stand. How much of your income is already spoken for before the month even starts? If a big repair showed up tomorrow, would it come out of savings or go on a card? And if you had to cut back on something, would it feel like a minor inconvenience or would it feel like losing your identity? Affordable shouldn't just mean the app approved me or this month's payment cleared. It should mean there's still room left over to absorb a repair, a rough month, or a surprise without turning it into debt. If any of this hit close to home, you're not alone. And it doesn't mean you did something wrong. A lot of very normal decisions, made one at a time, can quietly add up to a life with no margin in it. The good news is that margin can be rebuilt. It's just usually slower to rebuild than it was to lose. So here's the question I'll leave you with. What's one expense in your life that stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like it totally fixed? Drop it in the comments. It might help someone else spot the same pattern in their own life before it goes any further.